I never imagined that the time would come when I would have to consider parting with my home, the house where I had spent so many years of my life. But when you reach a certain age, reality starts to set in. Your body isn't as resilient as it once was. Your energy fades quicker, and the world that once felt so vast starts to feel a little smaller. I had always been proud of the life I had built for myself and my daughter, Olivia. My name is Sophia, and I had spent the better part of my life raising Olivia on my own. My husband Andrew had passed away when Olivia was just a teenager, and it had been just the two of us since then. Together, we weathered all the storms life threw our way. We laughed, cried, and celebrated all of the milestones that marked our years. I poured every ounce of my love into her, hoping to raise her into someone who understood the value of hard work, loyalty, and family. And for the longest time, I thought I had succeeded. Olivia had grown into a beautiful, intelligent, and driven woman. As a young child, she had always been a bright spark in my life, and I had always believed in her potential. I worked tirelessly to give her the best life I could provide. I made sure she had the finest education, the best clothes, and the opportunities I never had growing up. I even went the extra mile to make sure she could experience things I never had the chance to: family vacations, hobbies, extracurricular activities. I was determined to give her everything she needed to succeed. But as she got older, something began to change. Olivia became more independent, more distant. The calls grew less frequent, the visits shorter. It wasn't that she didn't love me. No, I didn't believe that. But it was as if the dynamic between us shifted, as if she was moving on to a different chapter of her life, one that I wasn't a part of. I tried not to take it personally, convincing myself that she was just busy, that this was a natural part of growing up. But deep down, I knew that something was slipping away. It was around this time, a couple of years ago, that I started to feel the weight of my age. The little aches in my joints turned into persistent pains, and I found it harder to keep up with everything. I was proud of the life I had built, of the house Andrew and I had designed together, the house that had been the center of everything. It was big, full of memories, and I had loved every inch of it. But as I approached my late 60s, it started to feel like more than I could handle on my own. The garden, once a place of beauty, had become a chore to maintain. The rooms, once filled with laughter and warmth, now echoed with the silence of solitude. I spent days looking at the house, overwhelmed by the upkeep. The rooms that once felt full of life now felt like a burden. The floors, though meticulously cared for, seemed to groan under the weight of my weariness. My body wasn't as quick to respond as it used to be, and the simple tasks I used to do, without a second thought, now left me exhausted. I had to admit it. I needed help, but not just any help. I needed someone I could trust, someone who understood the significance of the house, someone who could care for it the way it deserved to be cared for. And the one person I trusted more than anyone else in the world was Olivia. She was my daughter, my blood. She had grown up in this house, just as I had, and I believed she understood its importance, what it meant to me, to our family. It only made sense to pass on the responsibility of the house to her. I had always prided myself on being independent, never asking for too much help. But now I felt the weight of age pressing down on me, and I realized I couldn't keep up with the demands of this place alone. So I made the decision. I would give Olivia control of the house. It was a decision I thought would bring us closer, one that I hoped would show how much I trusted her. I was prepared to put the house in her name, to ensure it stayed within our family. I wanted to ease the burden of it all for myself, knowing that she could take care of the house the way I had done for so many years. The day I made the decision was a quiet one. I sat at the kitchen table with the paperwork spread out in front of me, my heart heavy with the weight of what I was about to do. Olivia was busy with her own life, but I called her to my side, telling her that I needed to talk. She arrived at my house that afternoon, looking as beautiful as ever, her high-powered career and poised demeanor a stark contrast to the simple life I had lived. She smiled warmly, but there was a distance in her eyes, a hint of something I couldn't place. We sat together at the table as I explained my thoughts. "Olivia, I've been thinking a lot about the future," I began. "I've been struggling with keeping up with the house, and I feel like it's too much for me to manage on my own anymore. I want you to take over, to look after the home and everything we've built here." Her eyes flickered as I spoke, but she didn't interrupt. She listened quietly, and when I was done, she sat back in her chair, her fingers lightly tapping the edge of the table. "Are you sure, Mom?" she asked, her voice gentle, but with a hint of something else. "You've worked so hard for this home, for this life. Don't you think it's a little early to give it up?" I smiled, though a knot began to form in my stomach. "I've spent my whole life building this, Olivia. It's been a wonderful journey, but it's time to pass the torch. I trust you with it more than anyone. I want to make sure it stays in the family." Olivia's gaze softened, and she reached across the table to take my hand. "Of course, Mom. I'll take care of it. You've given me so much, and I'll make sure this home is cared for just as you've always done." In that moment, I thought everything would be fine. I thought I was making the right decision, one that would bring peace to my heart and provide Olivia with the opportunity to care for the legacy I had created. I didn't know then that this act of trust would be the beginning of something I couldn't foresee, a heartbreak that would cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced at the time. I thought it was the right decision, the logical choice for the future. I never could have anticipated how that simple act of trust would unravel the bond between Olivia and me, how it would lead to the loss of something I had cherished for so long. But life, as it often does, had other plans for us. The path I had chosen would soon reveal the cracks in our relationship that I had ignored for too long. The house, my home, would soon become a symbol of betrayal, a place I had trusted Olivia with, only to see her treat it, and me, as something to be discarded. The foundation I had built with my own hands would crumble under the weight of the words that followed. But I didn't know that yet. I didn't know that the decision I thought was a simple one would end up breaking my heart forever. The decision to trust Olivia with my home felt right at the time. I had done everything in my power to raise her with love, with care, and with a sense of responsibility. I had built a life for her, for us in that house. I thought passing it on to her would bring us closer, cement our bond, and give her something solid to hold on to after I was gone. But the days, then the weeks, passed, and instead of feeling closer, I began to feel a growing distance between us, one that I couldn't ignore. At first, the change was subtle, barely noticeable. Olivia would visit, but her visits seemed shorter. She would ask me how I was, but there was a detachment in her voice, as if her mind was somewhere else. We still talked about the house, of course. She wanted updates on how I was maintaining things, if I needed help with repairs, and if I was comfortable living there. She said all the right things, but I could sense a shift in the way she spoke. There was no longer the warmth in her eyes when she talked about the house, the kind of warmth that I had always associated with her. It felt more like a business transaction than a conversation between mother and daughter. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe she was just busy, I thought. Her job had become more demanding, and she and Mark, her husband, were always traveling for work or social events. I told myself to be patient, that things would return to normal, and that this was just a phase. But with every passing day, The distance between us seemed to widen. Then came the phone call that really made my stomach turn. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was sitting in the living room, flipping through old photo albums when my phone rang. It was Olivia. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice sounding distant, as if she was speaking from far away. "How are you doing?" I could tell from the tone of her voice that she was being polite, but didn't actually want to engage in a long conversation. I tried to push aside the growing anxiety in my chest. I answered, telling her I was fine, though I wasn't, not really. My body was growing tired, and I felt more alone than I had in years. "That's good to hear," she said after a pause. "Listen, I've been talking to Mark, and we think it might be a good idea for you to move into something smaller. You know, somewhere more manageable for you." I blinked, unsure if I had heard her correctly. "What do you mean, smaller?" "You've had this house for years, Mom," Olivia explained. "It's just too big for you now. The maintenance, the garden, it's a lot of work. And, well, I've been thinking it might be better for you to downsize. Maybe find something more manageable." The words hit me like a sharp slap to the face. My home, the place I had built my life, my sanctuary, was now a burden in her eyes. I had expected concern, maybe even a little sympathy, but instead, I was being told that my house was too much for me, that it was time to let go. I tried to stay calm, but my voice faltered. "Olivia, this house means everything to me. It's where your father and I built our lives. It's where you grew up. It's not just a house, it's home." She was quiet, for a moment before responding, her voice softer now, almost apologetic. "I know, Mom, I really do. But think about it. It's just too much for you. You don't need all that space anymore. You could be more comfortable somewhere smaller, somewhere easier to manage." I felt my chest tighten with a sudden wave of emotion. The thought of leaving the house was unbearable. But what hurt more was the fact that Olivia was talking about it so casually, as though it was just an inconvenience I needed to remove from my life. The home I had raised her in, the place where so many of our precious memories lived, was just a thing to be sold off, to be discarded. I had given her the gift of this house, this piece of our shared history, and in return, it felt like she was already planning to move on, to sell it off as though it was no longer part of our family. "I'll think about it," I said, trying to mask the hurt in my voice, but I could already feel the rift beginning to form, the crack in the foundation of our relationship. How could she suggest such a thing? The call ended on a quiet note, but I knew that I couldn't ignore what she had. Sighed. I had never expected Olivia to make such a suggestion. For the first time, I began to question my decision to trust her with the house. Was she really the person I thought she was? Was she really the daughter I had raised, the one who understood what this house meant to me, to our family? A few days later, Olivia and Mark came over for a visit. I had been looking forward to seeing them, hoping that things might return to normal. But when they arrived, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Olivia's demeanor was colder than usual, and Mark seemed distant, almost as if he were avoiding eye contact. We sat in the living room, sipping tea and making small talk. But even then, the tension between us was palpable. I could feel the weight of the conversation we had just had, lingering in the air, unsaid but present. Finally, after a long silence, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had to ask her, had to confront her about what she had suggested. "Olivia, I've been thinking about what you said ... about the house," I started, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to remain calm. "Are you really telling me that you want me to sell it? To leave it behind?" She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, avoiding my gaze. Mark, sitting beside her, looked at his hands. his silence only adding to the weight of the moment. "Mom, it's not that simple," Olivia said finally, her voice a little softer now. "I know this house means a lot to you, but you have to understand, it's a lot of work. You're getting older, and there are things you can't do anymore. You have to think about the future." I wanted to scream, to ask her how she could be so cold, how she could be so detached from the love that had gone into every corner of this house. But instead, I just looked at her, my heart breaking with every word she spoke. "I've given you everything," I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "I trusted you with this house, because I thought you understood what it means. This house is where your father and I built our life together. It's where you grew up. I thought you would want to keep it in the family." Olivia's face softened, but there was no apology in her eyes. "I know, Mom, and I do want to help. But selling the house isn't about not caring. It's about making sure you're comfortable. It's about making sure you don't have to worry about things." Her words stung, even though I could tell she was trying to soften the blow. But nothing could take away the feeling of betrayal that had settled in my chest. This wasn't about comfort. It was about convenience. It was about making things easier for her and Mark, even if it meant sacrificing everything I had worked so hard for. As the evening wore on, I could feel the distance between us growing. Olivia's words, no matter how well-intentioned, had created a chasm that was hard to bridge. I couldn't understand how she could see the house, and by extension, me, as something to be discarded. That night, I sat alone in the living room. After they left, staring at the walls that had witnessed so much of our lives. The photographs of Andrew and me, the furniture we had chosen together, the rooms where we had laughed and cried, it all felt so far away. The house no longer felt like home. It felt like a symbol of everything I had lost. The cracks in our relationship were deepening, and I didn't know how to fix them. Olivia had always been my pride, my joy. I had always believed in her, trusted her with my heart. But now, I wasn't sure who she was anymore. And I couldn't help but wonder if the house, the place that had been our family's cornerstone, was the final casualty in a relationship that was slowly falling apart. What had I done? Had I made the wrong decision, putting my trust in her hands? Or had she simply grown into someone I no longer recognized? As I sat alone in the silence of my home, I realized that I had given Olivia more than just a house. I had given her a piece of my soul, and now I was terrified that she didn't even care enough to keep it safe. The days following Olivia's suggestion to sell the house passed in a blur. My world, once filled with the comfort of routine and memories, now felt unsettled, as if the very foundation beneath my feet was crumbling. I couldn't stop replaying her words over and over in my mind, each one cutting deeper than the last. "It's too much for you. You don't need all that space anymore. You'll be more comfortable somewhere smaller." But it wasn't just the house I was losing. It was the daughter I thought I knew. The daughter who had once laughed with me on the porch as we watched the sunset. Who had shared her hopes and dreams in the kitchen while I cooked. The Olivia I had trusted with my entire life now seemed like a stranger. And as much as I tried to deny it, the truth was undeniable. Our relationship was starting to fray, and I didn't know how to stop it. I tried to talk to her again, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I could make her understand. I called her one evening, my hands shaking. As I dialed her number, when she picked up, her voice sounded distant, but I pressed forward. "Olivia, I need to talk to you. About the house." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Mum, we've already discussed this. I don't know why we need to keep going over it," she said, her tone already beginning to harden. "I've told you it's what's best." Her words, though, calm, hit me like a physical blow. What's best? What she was asking was not what was best for me. It was what was best for her. And for Mark. I understand you want to help, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. But this is my home, Olivia. It's where I've spent my entire life. Your father and I built it together. This house is more than just 4 walls and a roof. It's where I raised you. It's where I've loved and lost. And now it feels like you want to erase it all. There was a long silence on the other end. And for a moment, I thought Olivia might say something to soften the tension, something to reassure me that she didn't mean to hurt me. But when she spoke again, her words cut through the silence like a knife. I'm not trying to erase anything, Mom, she said, her voice surprisingly firm. But I have to be realistic. You can't live in a house like this forever. You're getting older. You can't keep up with the maintenance. It's not just about you anymore. It's about what makes sense for everyone. Her words echoed in my mind, and I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. What makes sense for everyone? I repeated, my voice trembling. What about me, Olivia? What about what I want? There was no answer. I felt the cold, stark reality settle over me, the truth that my daughter, the one I had raised and trusted more than anyone, had already made up her mind. The house wasn't just a burden in her eyes, it was an obstacle, something to be dealt with, something to be moved past. She didn't see it as part of our family's legacy, but as a piece of property, a transaction to be sorted out. I need to go, Mom. We'll talk about this later, Olivia said quickly, her tone dismissive, and before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. For the first time in my life, I realized that the distance between Olivia and me wasn't just about the house. It was about something much deeper, something I couldn't fix. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that clung to me like a shadow. Every time I walked through the house, I saw her face in my mind, Olivia, who had once been my everything, who had once held my heart in her hands. But now, she was talking about selling the house I had poured so much of myself into, as if it was nothing more than a burden. I tried to keep myself busy, keeping up with the daily tasks around the house, but the effort was exhausting. Every corner of the house held memories of Andrew, of Olivia's childhood, of the years we spent building this life together. I couldn't just let go of that. But how could I convince Olivia to understand? How could I make her see that this house was more than just a place to live? It was everything I had, everything I had fought for, everything I had given her. A week later, I got the letter. It was from Olivia's lawyer. The letter, typed in cold, sterile font, informed me that Olivia had already begun the process of putting the house up for sale. She had signed the paperwork, and the listing had been finalized. The words blurred in front of me as I read them over and over, trying to make sense of it. It felt like the world was spinning out of control, like my life was no longer mine to hold. I picked up the phone and dialed Olivia's number again, but this time, when she answered, her voice was different, distant, cold. She knew what was coming. Olivia, what is this? I asked, my voice shaking. I thought we agreed to talk about this. I thought we had time. Why didn't you tell me you were already moving forward with the sale? I told you, Mom. It's for the best. Olivia replied, her tone flat, almost emotionless. You need to let go. You're not getting any younger. You can't keep living in this house. You'll be fine. Mark and I will help you find a place. You can live somewhere easier, somewhere more manageable. More manageable? I echoed, feeling my heart break. This isn't about managing anything, Olivia. This is about you taking everything away from me. This is my home. It's where I've lived for over 30 years, and now you're taking it from me without even asking if I'm okay with it." Olivia was silent for a moment, and when she spoke, again, there was an edge to her voice, something I hadn't heard before, a lack of empathy, a coldness that stung deeper than any words she had ever spoken. "Mom, you need to stop living in the past. We've been talking about this for months. You're just not accepting it. You'll be fine. You'll adjust. Just let it go." And with that, the line went silent. Olivia hung up on me. I sat there, my hand still holding the phone, my heart in pieces. The betrayal wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about the loss of everything I had built. The love, the memories, the future I had imagined for us. It was all slipping away. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop it. I had trusted Olivia with everything, my home, my life, my heart, and now, in the blink of an eye, it felt like I had nothing left. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, each one more painful than the last. I began to pack up my things, preparing for the inevitable move. It wasn't just about the physical act of leaving. It was about leaving behind the one place that had held my family, the place that had been the center of everything. Every box I packed felt like another piece of my life was being taken away from me. The walls that had witnessed my laughter, my tears, and my triumphs were now just empty shells. And yet, through all the pain, I couldn't stop loving Olivia. I couldn't stop hoping that somehow she would realize what she was doing, that she would come back and see that this was more than just a house, that it was a part of who we were. That as the days turned into weeks, I realized that the person I had raised, the daughter I had trusted, was no longer the same person. And there was nothing I could do to change that. The house was gone. My memories were packed away in boxes, and my heart felt empty. I had lost not just my home, but the daughter I had once known. But as I left that house for the last time, I knew one thing for certain. I would never stop loving Olivia. Even if she couldn't see me anymore, I would always be her mother. And somewhere deep inside, I still believed that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for us. Ask ChatGPT.